Welcome to the second segment in Module 5. This segment will cover individual supply, market supply, and the law of supply. In the last segment, you learned already how important the price is in determining supply. In this segment, we take a closer look to the relation between price and quantity supplied. We will start with the definition of quantity supplied. And you will learn how to derive an individual supply curve as well as a market supply curve. At the end of this segment, we will introduce the program to derive a supply curve when data are given. The program is provided to you in Chapter 4 in the supplement area. We start with the definition of the quantity supplied. The quantity supplied is the amount of a good that sellers or producers are willing and able to sell or produce at a given price. There are some words in this definition I would like to emphasize. One word is amount. This means we are talking about quantities, like bottles of Coke or tons of steel, rather than talking about values. Therefore, quantity supplied is always measured in units and never measured in dollars. Also, the words sell and produce are used interchangeable in this definition. This means we ignore wholesalers. We assume that the producer sells directly to the consumer. Although this is not true in the real world, it makes our argumentation way easier. And the last term I would like to emphasize is at a given price. This means for any given price there is one specific quantity supplied. In the next slides we use a visual approach to show the relation between price and quantity supplied. To explain the relationship between price and quantity supplied, we will use a simplified example. We have a valley, and in the middle of the valley we have a river. 5 farmers own different fields. All fields have in common that a farmer can grow 1 ton of wheat on this field. The difference between these fields is that it requires different dollar amounts to produce 1 ton of wheat. Before we proceed with this example, let's talk about some assumptions. I already mentioned that the supply consists of several fields owned by 5 farmers. We assume the farmers are price takers, meaning they can't influence the price. They would look the price up in the newspaper and decide if they grow wheat on their fields or if they don't. I already mentioned there are 3 types of fields. The first type of fields are close to the river, and because they are very fertile, farmers can produce 1 ton of wheat with not very much effort. That means the cost to produce 1 ton of wheat are not very high. They are $450. The other type of field, called medium fertile field, is not that close to the river, and it takes some effort for farmers to produce 1 ton of wheat. Consequently, 1 ton of wheat costs $460 to produce. The last type of field is called less fertile field. These fields are far from the river, and it takes a lot of effort for farmers to produce 1 ton of wheat. Therefore, the costs to produce 1 ton of wheat are $470. By going back to the map of our valley, you will get a better idea of the different types of fields. The ones which are close to the river are fertile, and therefore it costs farmers $450 to produce 1 ton of wheat. The medium fertile fields are a little bit further away from the river. Therefore the water supply is not that good, and it costs farmers more to produce 1 ton of wheat. And finally, the less fertile fields are quite a distance away from the river. Therefore it's very difficult to water these fields, and it costs the farmer $470 to produce 1 ton of wheat. In the following slides you will see how the assumed situation will lead to different quantities supplied for different prices, and you will get an idea how the costs of the field influence the supply. We will cover the relation between price, costs, and supply way more detailed in the following chapters. Here we stay with our simplified assumptions and start with deriving the individual supply for one of the farmers, for farmer B. Deriving the supply for farmer B first means we have to ignore all other farmers and only focus on the fields and the production of farmer B. It also means that the supply schedule we derive is only the supply schedule for farmer B. What happens if the price is $440? Take a look at the costs of the fields. Even on the most fruitful fields, it costs $450 to grow 1 ton of wheat. If the price of wheat is $440, like here, there is no way farmer B can cover his costs. Therefore, he would not grow wheat at all. His supplied quantity is therefore 0. If the market price increases to $450, it makes sense for farmer B to grow wheat on his most fruitful fields, because he can at least cover his costs. If the price increases to $460, then it makes sense to grow wheat on the medium fruitful fields. For sure it makes sense to grow wheat on the fruitful fields because it costs only $450 to grow wheat on these fields. So that, if we add it up, 2 fruitful fields, 3 medium fruitful fields where he just can cover his costs, is a supplied quantity of 5. If the market price increases further to 470, then our farmer can even cover the costs of the less fruitful fields, which would be 470. He doesn't make any profit, but he can at least cover his costs. And on the other fields, he would actually make a profit. What is his supplied quantity? 2 fruitful fields, 3 medium fruitful fields, and 3 less fruitful fields adds up to a supplied quantity of 8 tons.
The completed supply schedule reflects the law of supply. Firms are willing to produce more if the price is higher. Firms are willing to produce and sell less when the price is lower.
After opening the program, we copy the quantity supplied for each price in the supply schedule of the diagram, and the program will actually plot our data. We start with a price of 440. When the price is 440, the supplied quantity was 0. Check the diagram. The data point is plotted correctly in the diagram. What if the price is 450? If the price is 450, the supplied quantity was 2. Type this in the supply schedule and click OK. Check the diagram. The data point was plotted correctly. If the price is 450, the supplied quantity is 2. If the price is 460, the supplied quantity would be 5. Type this in the diagram and click OK to plot the point. Double check if the point was plotted correctly. A price of 460 leads to a supplied quantity of 5. What if the price is 470? Then the supplied quantity would be 8. Again click OK and the point will be plotted. A price of 470 leads to a quantity supplied of 8. Now if we click the button Draw Supply Curve, the program will calculate a straight line which fits our data points best. Here it is. We call this straight line Supply Curve. The supply curve shows the behavior, the supply behavior of farmer B. It's an individual supply curve. Please go to the supplement area of Chapter 4 and start the program to develop an individual supply curve. Then you can redo what we did here. That will help you to remember how a supply curve is derived, and it will help you to understand the topic better. If we know the supply behavior of all farmers in the valley, we can develop the supply behavior for the valley as a whole. Or better, we can develop the supply behavior for the whole market. This is what we try to accomplish on the next slides. Here you see the whole valley again. The market supply consists of the production from farmer A, farmer B, farmer C, farmer D, and farmer E. By adding up the farmers' production, we will get the market supply. Let's see how that works in detail. When the price for 1 ton of wheat is 440, none of the farmers, even on the most fruitful fields, would be able to cover his or her costs. Therefore, before they lose money, they would not produce at all. The market supply is 0 when the price is 440. What if we have another price? For example, $450 per ton of wheat. If the market price for a ton of wheat is $450, then the farmers in the valley are able to cover the costs on their most fruitful fields. Remember, it costs $450 to produce 1 ton of wheat on the most fruitful fields. Still, they are not able to cover the costs on the medium fruitful or on the less fruitful fields, because the costs on the medium fruitful fields were $460 and the costs on the less fruitful fields were even higher. Therefore, the farmers will only produce wheat on the most fruitful fields, and if you count the fields, you will get the tons of production, because on each field the farmer produces 1 ton of wheat. This adds up to 13 tons of wheat supplied quantity for the market. If the market price is $460, the farmers in the valley can not only cover their costs on their most fruitful fields, they also can make a profit of $10. Therefore, for sure, they will produce on their most fruitful fields. On the medium fruitful fields, the farmers can at least cover their costs. Therefore, they will produce on the most fruitful fields as well as on the medium fruitful fields. There were 13 most fruitful fields and 9 medium fruitful fields in the valley, just count them, which gives a market production of 22. The supplied quantity in the market is 22 tons of wheat if the price is $460. In case the price is $470, the farmers would actually produce on all their fields. On the most fruitful fields, they would make a profit of $20 each field. On the medium fruitful fields, they would make a profit of $10 on each field. And on the less fruitful fields, they could at least cover their costs. If you count all the fields in the valley, you will get the supplied quantity for the whole market. If the price is 470, the supplied quantity would be 34 tons of wheat. The supply schedule on the upper left-hand side reflects the supply behavior of the wheat market. If we want to express the supply behavior through a graph, we have to develop the supply curve. We will use a program which you can download from the supplement area of this chapter to derive a supply curve. On the next slide you will see how to use this program. After opening the program for the market supply data and the supply curve, which you will find in the supplement area, you can actually develop the supply curve. We start again with copying and plotting the data points from the supply schedule. If the price is 440, the quantity supplied in the wheat market would be 0. Click OK to plot the data point. You can see in the diagram that the data point was plotted correctly. If the price is 450, The quantity supplied for the whole wheat market would be 13. Click OK to plot this data point. Check the diagram. If the price is 450, the quantity supplied is 13. If the price increases to 460, the quantity supplied would be 22. Again, if you click OK, the data point will be plotted. A price of 460 leads to a quantity supplied of 22. A price of 470 triggered a quantity supplied of 34. Click OK and the last data point will be plotted. You see in the diagram that a price of 470 leads to a quantity supplied in the whole market of 34 tons of wheat. Now click on the Draw Supply Curve and the program will calculate a supply curve for the whole market which fits best to the data points. Here it is. This is the supply curve for the whole market. It represents the supply behavior of all farmers in the market. Please go to the supplement area, load the program for the supply curve for the whole wheat market, and redo the experiment. What did you learn in this segment? You learned how individual supply can be derived for a single producer. In the case we covered, there was farmer B. Based on the individual supply of all the producers in the market, you learned how the market supply can be derived. You also learned how to derive a supply curve from data for the individual as well as for the market supply. And let's not forget, we explained the law of supply. Remember? The higher the market price, the higher the supplied quantity. The lower the market price, the lower the supplied quantity.